Welcome to the first episode of Wake Up with Lynn. And today I'm here with my partner, Cori. We've been together 5.5 years, and we're going to be reflecting on a conversation that we had back in 2022, so 3 years ago. And it took place in December over Zoom. I was still living in Asbury Park, and she was living in Pittsburgh. And so I had a feeling that this conversation was going to be intense and meaningful, and it did not disappoint. So I was so happy that we both agreed to record that episode 3 years ago. And so we're going to share that.
We will now share a portion of that conversation, and then Lynn and Cori will share wisdom and insights gained since then.
How do I honor my decisions and myself and also this relationship that I really care about and don't want to lose? If circumstances came about where that needed to happen, I at least have to be willing to let that go. As hard as that may be, that's the path that I'm choosing for myself, to let go of everything if the circumstances dictate that. Because in my mind and in my knowingness, it's the only way that I can truly be free. And it's not that I want to choose to have those things actually play out. I'm choosing the willingness to go there. It's not that I want to manifest these things. It's not that I want to choose that to happen and to create that reality for myself. What I'm choosing is the willingness to go there if circumstances presented themselves.
I don't think you're choosing the circumstance, because to me, a circumstance is like a hurricane came through and completely took everything. And I'm okay with letting go of everything that I had because that was the circumstance. I couldn't avoid that circumstance. But you're choosing to have a circumstance happen because you can avoid it, but you're choosing not to because it's not comfortable for you or it's not your path. If the house, goes and you had to sell that or whatever, then how do you move forward with that? Because if you get another place that is more affordable, where you don't have to go back into IT in order to pay for that, but you might be doing something else that could allow you to live maybe just differently. And it doesn't sound like you're even wanting to choose that path. You're just like, if I have to let it go, I don't feel like you're choosing the circumstance. I feel like you're choosing just not to work in any capacity because you have this, whatever it is. And to me, that is ego too. I know you think it's the spiritual path, but I feel like that's the ego in your mind, or it's an equivalent to going to the whole other extreme now of this is the spiritual path and this is the way I'm going to follow it. I'm never going to, work in a certain way again because that's not how I want my life to be. And I believe that I don't have to live that way. And so I could just have nothing. And that's fine. I mean, it was a very eye-opening conversation for me, but it made me confused because those aren't choices I would make for myself. I mean, if I ended up having to lose this house because I decided not to make the amount of money that I make anymore, I would be choosing, okay, well, what do I want to be doing? And then what can I afford and live differently? Because I'm okay with living differently if it's doing something that I love. You went from a year ago looking at $500,000 houses to now me thinking, okay, like you're willing to just let that all go. There's going to need to be money coming from somewhere. It doesn't need to be IT, but it has to come from somewhere. So we live. And I went from that scenario to you just being like, well, if I have to let this all go, I have to let it all go. And continue on my path, if I have to have nothing to reach spiritual enlightenment, then that's what I want to do. And that's okay. But that was new to me. And that's not the path I want to take. I'm on a spiritual and growth path, but I'm not saying that I'll let go of everything and live in a box, because I won't be happy. I don't feel like I'll reach my spiritual enlightenment or whatever growth and end all be all spiritual thing. That path doesn't look like that to me. And so if that's what it looks like to you, then it may not happen now, but at some point it may happen, and that's going to affect me. So maybe this is a mismatch, because I'm sure there are other people that are okay with the path that you want to take.
I kept saying no one, but you corrected me, like there's going to be a small, section of people who will understand that. But the majority of, society would not understand that choice. I don't think it's the enlightened choice. It's not the path. That to me is, you get there through ego. Ego gets you to that point. I'm trying to articulate that this is a real fear that still has me tethered in some way.
I guess I'm not clear on what the fear is. I feel like you're saying the fear is that you have to choose to go back to work so you could live. I feel like there's this false belief that you're having here is, the only way I could stay in this house is if I do something I don't like.
No, it's the fear of, that's the easy solution, and that's a solution that I don't have the desire for that, because it's not something I want to do. It's the fear of uncertainty, that if I continue down the path that I'm choosing, I may find myself in a place that I actually don't want to be in.
Right. If I was in that situation, I would have been very focused on doing what I love and being able to figure out a way, like how I could figure this out financially, to live a certain way that I want to live, to choose whatever it is, whether it's that house or a tiny house, but then to take the steps and actions to figure that out for myself and do it, and not be living in the fear.
I hear what you're saying. I hear you would be proactive and doing all you could to go in the direction that you feel called to do. And I totally get that, and I understand that. The challenge for me, though, is I feel like I'm doing the very best that I can by the things I am currently doing. I'm trying to be holding compassion for myself, that if I could do more, I would have done more. And for some reason, I don't have this drive to do more. I don't know if that's that saying where procrastination is the soul's way of telling you you're not ready for whatever. It's not time. It's not the time for that. And so I hear what you're saying, but I also know I am putting my best foot forward. And yes, my ego mind can be saying, well, I should be doing more. I could be doing more. But something within me, obviously, is holding me back. So what is that? Is it fear, or is it just not the right time for me? And I understand on the outside having these thoughts of, you could be doing this or you could be doing that. But I don't know why I don't have that drive. I
Right.
don't.
I mean, right. And I get that. And this, I'm not conflicted or confused about that. That's not what this is about for me, just so you know. It was the part of the path you're trying to take and that you want to take, and how you're willing to let everything go, and how that is a misaligned path for me. And that's what was concerning. I mean, what came up for me is feeling like, okay, like you don't feel like you would do whatever it takes for us to be okay. That's what I felt. And that's what was confusing for me, because if it was me, I would do whatever I needed to do to make sure that we're okay. And the more you talked about the path that you want to get to, I started to think like, you sounds like you're on like a completely different path and mindset, which is fine. But then it worried me because I'm thinking, maybe this is not, we're not aligned for our future, because I would do whatever I would do more, whatever it had to be. I mean, I would hope that I wouldn't do anything that I hated to do. But I would be working towards something to make sure, that we're okay. And all I heard from you was I'm listening to my higher self. And if I have to let go of everything, even our relationship, then that's what I have to do.
Right, but just to clarify, it's not my higher self telling me I need to do these things. I'm saying I'm trusting in the guidance of, when I get into these fearful modes of the uncertainty, I'm checking in with my higher self on, do I take the IT job? Do I just go down that path and just do it? That's what I'm talking about. My higher self is not saying you need to go and let go of this relationship and your house. And, my higher self is never saying those things or like guiding me in that direction. The only reason that those things come up is because of my ego mind saying, this is a serious situation that could happen. If you don't do something, it's like the ego mind is saying, you're in a position right now to choose. To choose the safety of going back to IT or living in the unknown, in the uncertainty. And you may find out that 2, 3, 4, 5 months down the road, it's too late. And now you've created a situation where you now have to let go of everything that you worked so hard to like create for yourself. And it's me then saying, I know that's the choice, but I also know that I don't want to live in fear anymore. And I don't want to choose that just because I think I might end up somewhere that I ultimately don't want to do or be or have. Like, I don't want that reality. But at the same time, it's like, but you got to do something about it now before it's too late. And this is the tug of war that's going on inside of me because I'm like, no, I know that in order for me to be really free, to really embody the trust and the love, I gotta be willing to choose to live in this really scary uncertainty. Because, here's the crazy thing is right now and for, several months, I'm okay. I'm totally okay. But it's the ego mind that keeps pulling me back to, if you don't do something now, it may be too late. And then you're going to lose it all. And so I'm having these conversations with you because this is what's really at work in me right now. This is the energy that is like really swirling around. And by talking about it, I'm letting you know where I'm at. And then having this conversation, right, that's gonna like, it is gonna affect you because you're thinking like it's okay because we have our own houses right now, we're not commingled, and versus looking down the road to what our future plans are of literally commingling our lives, living in one house, having a life together, and everything that comes with that. I get it. I get why you're starting to
Right.
question, are we aligned? And my response to that is, we are aligned in terms of it's not the life I want. It's not something that I'm actively pursuing. It's not something that I see for myself. It's not this vision of my life that I see that I gotta lose it all in order to be enlightened. That's not the vision of my life. But the fear is real. And I'm just expressing that that's the reality of where Lynn lives right now. I'm living in this reality of I want what I want. I see a life with you. I see us living together. I see us being financially free, living a beautiful life together, being of service, living a life of service. And we're doing that together. Like, that's my vision.
I mean, to me, it seems like you just have this little box of that your only choice is IT or not IT. There's nothing outside of the box for you. It's like I have to just go to IT in order for me to make an income. Whereas, why not be thinking if I was charging, like most shamans, a lot of shamans do charge, and it could be hundreds of dollars of for a session. I mean, okay, if I did charge, and let's say it was $300 a session, it could be $400 a session. I've looked online, I see, 500 plus people charge for shamanic healings. But let's just say if it was, you were thinking like, okay, well, maybe if I started charging people and my goal would to be to not just sit back and wait for only people to come to me, but to be out there and writing stuff and putting stuff out there and helping people. And then they want to have a session with me. Then, if I have 2 or 3 people a week, like, here's what I would need to do that I'm loving doing: healing people, being of service. And if I'm getting this many people a week, and this is how much money it is, okay, now all of a sudden I'm making 1,200 or 1,500 or 1,800 a week. Like, there's so many other ways that you can be helping people, which you are already, but you're choosing not to charge them and just donation based. And I get that, but there's other ways to be making an income doing what you love and being of service to people.
I hear what you're saying. It's not that I'm opposed to charging, but again, I go back to I constantly check in to see, like, should I be setting a fee for my healing sessions and for my stuff? And the answer is no.
Right,
And
and that's okay, but that doesn't have to be the, and then what could you be doing? What
I
else then could you be doing to be
I
creating
I hear
some
you,
kind
babe.
of an income for you?
I know. I hear you. And this goes back to our original conversation of I get why you keep bringing this up. Like, well, what could you be doing? What could you be doing to get the income? I understand that thinking. I understand that thinking. Like, right, what else could I be doing? But what's so interesting is what keeps coming in for me is, and this is going to sound really like out there, and, you know, I think it's going to like not make sense to a lot of people, but I feel like that is the old paradigm of, right, what do I have to do to get something? And where I want to live is, who do I have to be in order to have whatever it is that I want? It's not the doing, it's the being. And the struggle for me is that I know this truth. This is a knowing deep within me that it's not about the doing part, it's about the being part. But my being right now is split. My being is, I know and I feel the truth that it's not what I do, it's who I be. But the fear that keeps coming up of is, you just keep being And then there maybe it's a possibility, there's this uncertainty that you just keep being and not doing, which I feel like I am doing because I am, every week doing my meditations and my spiritual teachings. And whenever someone calls for help, I'm there. So I am doing, but
Right.
but
That's what I don't
wait, wait,
get.
wait,
Being
wait,
is doing.
wait, but wait,
Being is doing.
but wait. I'm answering the call. I'm not going out saying I gotta do in order for me to get some sort of income, right? Because that's what we're talking about. This is about the uncertainty of how is it going to be sustainable? How am I going to sustain myself? Because right now, it's shrinking, it's not growing, it's right. So the thought is, how am I going to sustain this long term? And I understand why you keep thinking like, well, there's other things you could be doing. I get that, but again, everything within me is, it's not about the doing, it's about the being. I completely understand the thinking of, there are so many things you could be doing that will support the very thing that you are feeling called to do and that you love to do. I understand that. But it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Remember when I had said, I don't know why I don't have the desire to do whatever it takes to make something happen? Remember we had that
Hmm.
little, it's the same feeling. It's it's the knowing. It the here's the analogy. And I'll before I go to the analogy, I'll just want to close this little loop again, because it's the same conversation we were just having a little while ago of, I don't know why I don't have that burning desire to do everything and anything to make this happen. I don't know why I don't have that. I understand that many people do. I get it. I see it and I appreciate it. And I think that's amazing. But it's not the truth of me. For whatever reason, I don't understand it, but it's not the truth of me. I don't have that. What I have is trust, have faith, and let go, and just be, and everything else will fall into place. That's the truth of me. But here's the paradox of that. While that is the truth of me, and that's probably like 90% of me, the 10% of me is still like, you're right. I could be doing all these things. I could be like blasting myself out there and charging and doing all these things. You're right. But the 90% of me is like, no, just trust, Lenny. Just trust. Trust. It's not your doing that's going to make things happen. It's your beingness. And the reason why that's the path for me, and I'm not saying that's the path for everyone, because I do believe that when you have that fire in your belly and you have that deep desire for something, you will get it, because you have so much energy and momentum going in that direction that that is going to propel you. So I get the value of it. But that's not the truth of me. To me, there's a difference of forcing myself to do something because I should be doing something. And it's a completely different thing of, I'm inspired and like, I'm really feeling the call to do this thing.
But why wouldn't you want to be doing something that you enjoy doing that would bring in an income for you to be able to live the way you want to be living and not in fear mode? I guess I'm just confused on why you wouldn't choose that.
Honey, I'm not choosing it. It's just not happening. All I'm doing is sharing with you that 90% of me is comfortable doing what I'm doing and continuing to doing it. And there's this 10% of me that is still tethered to, holy shit, like, how are you going to sustain yourself? And how are you going to sustain this future that you want with Cori? How are you going to do it? That's the 10%. And I was sharing with you the reality of that.
What I heard last night is that you're willing to let it all go, even if it's losing me. This is what I heard from you last night.
What does
Basically,
that
I
mean, though?
heard,
Let's put the context about what that
for
means,
me, what
because
that meant is that you're okay with choosing to do nothing, even if it means you have to lose everything.
here's what I'm choosing. I am choosing that I am willing to trust in my beingness, in my connection to my higher self, that even in the midst of this 10% lower self chiming and saying, if you don't do something now, you may start living a reality that you don't want to live. And I'm choosing the 90% of me that says, I am willing to stay in the direction that I feel deep within me that I'm meant to do, I'm meant to be, because I don't want to be tethered to this 10% fear anymore. I'm like 95% in knowing the truth of my beingness. And at the same time, I'm living with this 5-10% of myself that wants nothing to do with this uncertainty, wants certainty, is demanding certainty from me. And my conversation with you was about sharing that reality of what's happening inside of me right now. That's the
But
truth.
but you also shared with me that you are willing to let it all go if that's what it's supposed to do. That even if it's including me, that you are willing to listen to your higher self and not do anything if even if it means that I have to lose the house, my cars, and the relationship with you. That's what I heard. I'm fine with everything you shared. And I'm completely fine. I get it. I understand this is your path. I hear what your fears are. That's not what this is about. It's about how you ended it and what I heard that you were willing to do. And I said, that is not a choice I would make. And I'm thinking, then we're on a very different path because I'm not willing to let it all go and do nothing to lose everything, including my relationship. And if you're okay with that, that's okay. But that doesn't sit well with me. And it's not the path I want to take with someone to think, okay, they're willing to do nothing and have us just disappear. Because that doesn't feel good at all to me.
Right. I understand that. I get that. And you know, as you were saying what you were saying, what I realized was my higher self would never say or allow that to happen.
But that's not what you said last night.
I know, but that's the ironic thing. That's the silliness of it. Is what the realization I just had was nothing about my beingness, my essence, my higher self has any desire or need for me to live that life of separation from you or from anything I want to desire. And so it's a mute point, really. What it is that's the 10% talking. That's the 10%. That's the life of the 10%. And
What's the life of the 10%?
the life of the life of thinking, you know, you could possibly lose it all. And so, you know, this could be a reality for you, so you better think twice about it. That's the 10%. My higher self, what I'm realizing just now is my higher self is saying, dude, that's false. That's false. You don't need to listen to that. That's not gonna happen. That's not gonna
But it
happen.
was a choice, but you said it was the choice you were willing to make.
Well, because that is me standing in my power. That is me standing in the truth of what I want to embody. That's the truth and the wisdom that I want to embody. That even with this 10% nagging little voice in me, I'm not listening to you. I am willing. You're saying this could happen, and I'm saying I'm willing. And it's so funny because now I'm realizing that's my desire. That's the fire in my belly. That's the that's the thing. I'm not out there doing in the world, but I am being with such unstoppable passion. I am being so willing to make that hard choice. What seems to be hard, it seems to be so hard to be willing to do that
Saying you
choice.
Right, so you're saying you are willing then to let it go, even if that means to let go of everything. Now you just said the
Right.
opposite.
Okay. I know it sounds weird. It doesn't make sense right now. I get that. Here it is. The ego mind is saying, don't be willing. Don't be willing to risk it. Don't be willing to do that. Don't. Don't. You're going to regret it. And my higher self and my beingness and my essence is saying, be willing.
Right, so to be willing to let it all go,
Yes.
include even if that, like, to choose that decision, to choose, be willing to let it all go, even if it means the relationship, because you're choosing to do that.
And here's the key. Here's the gem, the pearl. Here's the pearl in it. By being so committed to the willingness of making that monumental choice that goes beyond all logic and understanding, to be willing to reach that far beyond all logic and comprehension, to be willing to do that. That is freedom. That is liberation. That is everything. With that willingness to make that monumental, tough choice, you are added everything. Everything is given to you because you're willing to let it all go for your freedom of that nagging freaking 10% that says you can't. That's stupid. That's not smart. That's a bad decision. Wrong choice. Don't do it. And now I understand. Now I understand. By simply being willing to go there, just the willingness. It doesn't mean I need to experience it. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen. It doesn't mean any of that. It's just saying, I am willing. I'm willing. I'm willing. And with that, I am free. I am free. And listen, I get that's not easy to take in. I get that's, you know, I get that there's going to be a lot of people who don't get that. Who's just like, nope, I just can't go there. I can't. I can't go there. I actually do understand. I do. But I just also know that that is the truth of me. And I know that can be really, really scary for you. And I get that, you know, that's a lot to take in, because if I'm willing to do that, like, that's a lot to process on your side.
So what I'm hearing is you are willing to make a choice to lose everything instead of figuring out and doing something that you love to do, so you don't have to lose it all, but you would just be willing, you're making the choice to lose everything, including the relationship.
Okay.
Is that what you're saying? Because that's what I'm hearing you say. Because you said my higher self doesn't have the desire to make that choice, but you're saying you're willing to make that choice.
Right. So here's how I understand it now. It's really fascinating to me. Here's how I understand it. My higher self doesn't live in the world of um like, you have to lose it all, you have to be willing to give it all up. You have, this is a choice you have to make. My higher self doesn't live in that realm. My higher self knows that I'm okay in every and any situation. My higher self knows that I am perfect exactly how I am in every moment of my life, no matter what's happening. And this is all coming from the 10% that says, how on earth can you be willing to make that choice? That's the 10% saying, you're out of your freaking mind. How can you do that? You're really willing to do that? My higher self is up here saying, just watching the whole thing, just just being compassionate, just holding space. My higher self does not require me to make that decision. My higher self does not want or care or have any demands on me. It's my lower self, my primal fear, that says, how on earth are you okay making that decision? And what I'm realizing is I'm making that decision from my lower self. And my lower self is like, are you freaking kidding me? You're making that decision? My higher self's up here just watching it all. And that's the truth about it. And I didn't know that yesterday. I didn't know that last night, but I know that right now. This is my lower self being at odds with my lower self. This is my lower self saying, I know what I feel. I know what the truth is. I know all of the wisdom teachings and the experiences I've had. And I know I have to be willing to choose this. And that same lower self is saying, big mistake. You don't know what you're choosing, man. You have no idea what you're choosing. You're really willing to make that choice? You're really willing to let it all go? Seriously? Like, think about it. Think long and hard about it, think long and hard about it, Lenny. Yeah, it may be easy to let go of the house and the cars and all that bullshit, because on some level that doesn't mean anything. You can't take that, with you when you transition. Yeah, you're okay with that. But are you really willing? Are you really saying, like, you're willing to let go of your relationship with Cori? The one thing that you wanted your whole entire life, that you now have, that you wanted for so long. You're now telling me you're willing to give that up? Think about it. That doesn't make sense. And so my lower self finally had enough desire to say to the same lower self, yeah, As crazy as that may sound, as insane as that may sound, as much as I wanted this relationship, and I love and cherish this relationship, and I don't want to let it go, but I am willing to do it. I am willing. I'm not choosing for that to be so, but I'm choosing to be willing. I am willing. This is me, my lower self, talking to my lower self, saying, I am tired of you messing my shit up. I'm tired of, don't do that. Don't do that. You don't want that. You don't know what's going to happen. And I'm realizing, yeah, that's what just happened. My lower self just said F you to my lower self. I didn't see that coming. That was a twist. I don't know if that makes sense, if that, like, I don't know how you're taking all that in. I don't I don't know how that's affecting you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still not really following. Like, you're saying it's your lower self saying that you'd be willing to give it up, but then you said your higher self is saying that you're willing to give it up, and that's the freedom. So I'm not really sure.
So let me clarify. What I said is my higher self requires nothing of me, is not asking me to choose. It's
Oh,
my higher self is hanging out here watching the drama unfold, holding compassion for me. My higher self requires absolutely nothing of me.
well,
And
what was the
and this
freedom?
and this whole time, I think I mistakenly thought that that was part of, the calling to um to follow this path, right? And so my higher self literally requires nothing of me. There is no choice.
Hmm.
There is no
Right. Okay.
choice in the realm for my higher self. My higher self is just hanging around watching the unfolding of this lower self drama.
Right. I see. Well, that's what confused me last night is because you were basically saying your higher self, the enlightenment is to be okay with letting everything go.
And that's how I was feeling, like, not that my higher self would be telling me these things, because I know that that wouldn't have happened. But what I was feeling last night was, if my life unfolded in such a way that that would occur, that I would lose everything, including you, that yeah, that in a way, my beingness just needed to be willing to do that. And I was thinking, like, that's the spiritual path. But what
Right.
happened just now during this conversation is I'm realizing my higher self requires nothing of me. It asks nothing of me. All it is a beingness, a presence that is just there watching the drama of the lower self unfold and play itself out.
Right. Okay.
It does not require this choice. What is really the battle is the battle of the lower self, where I was my 90% lower self was like, trust, faith. It's not about the doing, it's about the being. Everything will be added on to you. This is the wisdom, this is the knowing, this is this. And then there's that 10% of the same lower self saying, no, no, dude, you seriously can't be serious about making this choice. You can't be serious. Like, you're not going to let it go down this way. You're not
Right.
really willing to go there, right? Like, seriously, you're really willing to do that? And my 90% lower self says, yes, yes, I am. I am. As much as that's going to frickin' suck, And I don't want it. As much as I don't want that to happen, I am willing. I am, because I know that that is my only way to be free, to be really free. And I didn't realize it, but it was to be free of the 10% that was saying, dude, don't do it.
Right. Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah.
I was like, holy shit. Holy shit. It wasn't this battle between my higher self and my lower self. It was literally, it's been all this time, literally this battle between my lower self and
Right.
itself.
Right.
Like, plot twist. Oh my God. Plot twist.
Right. Okay, I understand now. I know it's more clear.
I didn't see that coming. And that's why I was having, like, such a hard time last night.
Right. Right. Well, it's no different than when I have my battles with myself of thinking, this isn't going to work because I'm not good enough,
Mm-hmm.
and how it's playing out with you. So, I mean, I don't feel like I'm struggling with what you are struggling with. I feel like I could be here for you and, be compassionate and listen and let you go through it. And I know you're going to get through it, and I'm going to be here, at the other end of it.
Yeah.
You know
That's
what I mean? So, yeah, so I feel like I could be here for you and hold the space while you're going through that.
right.
But it was hard to think that you're saying that, your higher self is telling you that, if you have to choose this and that's your path to enlightenment, that was, that didn't feel good, because you're telling me that that's your spiritual path
Right.
of being okay with letting it go. So in my mind, I'm envisioning, like, when we're together, that at any point you're going to be like, well, my higher self is saying it's okay. I'm going to let everything go. Everything that's crumbling around us, like, it's going to crumble. I'm not going to do anything about it. We're just going to let it happen.
Right. 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 I see. Right.
And I'm
Almost.
like, no, I'm not, I don't operate that way. That's not my higher self is not saying it's okay, let everything crumble and let it all go away. And if you're alone, you're alone. Like, that's not what I want. That's not the path my higher being wants.
Right. And in fact, your higher self has no opinion about it.
Right.
It literally has no opinion. It's your
Right.
lower self saying, like, your lower saying's like, no, you don't need to do that at all. Your lower self is looking at life from a different lens than my lower self. And so, right, your lower self was like, yeah, like, I'm not going to let it go down that way. It doesn't need to be that way. And like, your higher self really doesn't have an opinion, but your inner knowing, because you don't have that same, like, split within the lower self that I do, your lower self was more whole and complete in that subject matter. You know what I mean? And like, your higher self knows that, like, you're going to be okay no matter what. So whatever you choose, your higher self is just watching the drama unfold, just like my higher self is. But
Right.
it seems like your lower self didn't have that, you know, huge shift that mine did, I guess, is what I'm hearing what I'm surmising by, you know, what you're saying and how I was feeling.
Right. Like, I wasn't having a struggle.
Right. Uh-huh.
Like, I was comfortable, I wasn't thinking I have to do something I don't want to do. Like, I wasn't, I'm not in that space. I mean, so I wasn't experiencing, right, the same inner turmoil that you were.
Right.
And I'm okay with what you have to experience. That, like I said, that's something that I would want to be here and support you through.
Well, I'm really happy to hear you say that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's no different than when I have the struggle with myself. and you're okay with it happening and listening and kind of just observing what's happening and letting me know, you're here for me.
Right. So, like I love to say, this is a really good talk.
That's really good.
So glad that we both were willing to record it because um yeah, it was really something.
So I'm glad that we had to talk because there was just more clarity of really what it was you were conveying and what you were feeling and what you were meaning. And to me, it doesn't feel like we're not aligned on the same path.
Right, right. Yeah, well, like I said, it was a plot twist for me because I wasn't having that realization. So
Hmm.
this was I feel like this was a real gift and a blessing for me.
Yeah, and I mean, and it was helpful for me to get more insight, on what your struggles are and what you are dealing with yourself,
Right.
because it's always helpful to know, what it is you're going through. So I can be more supportive and understanding and knowing where things might be coming from. I told you before, I don't love you for your house or for money or whatever. I mean, I love you for who you are. And, we're both going to evolve and be different, people. We're going to grow or whatever. But, I know you need to figure this out yourself.
I also do realize that everything is evolving at its own time and its own pace, and it's that 10%. Like when you say, well, you could be doing these things and you're sort of like you feeling the crunch, and so now you're kind of, you know, trying to make that last final push. That's my 10%, chiming in like, right, you should have been doing this the whole time. And my 90% of beingness is saying that wasn't an inspired true action for you, and it's okay. It's all right.
Right. I'm just saying the thing is the desire that that other people have, it's their why.
Mhm.
That's the why. So if you don't have a why, there is no desire. The why has to be strong enough to do something, right? Do whatever it takes. What about that exercise? It is do whatever it takes. Doesn't matter, right?
But the thing about do whatever it takes, yeah, I think that's an important thing to not let the fear overtake you. But also, I want to acknowledge that there is um because I want to hold compassion for myself and other people who go through this, where it seems like it's such a simple thing to just say, oh, fuck it, just do whatever it takes. It seems like such an easy thing to, like, right, just push through your fear. Like, just do it, dude. Just do it. For me, there's a level of unconsciousness of that. You don't even feel the fear. It's not that you feel fear. You just don't, you feel flat. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing going on. So there's nothing that you feel like you need to push through.
Mm,
You don't feel like this, oh, I'm feeling fear. Now's the choosing point where just do whatever it takes and get yourself going. No. You're like, I'm good. I'm totally good. Like, I got nothing going on here. There's nothing to
right,
overcome. There's nothing to push through. You just don't have this desire. You don't
right,
got it.
right.
There's no fear holding me down.
Yeah,
You know what I
right. I
mean?
get it. Yeah, I do because I mean when I think about it with, with me doing business development, there is a fear. I don't feel a flatness like, oh, I don't need to be doing anything. It's like, I'm like, right, I don't want to pick up the phone. What are they going to think? Like all the chatter that goes on in my head. So yeah, no, I do know what you mean. And but I do think the desire does come from the why. I mean, if we don't have the
Yeah,
strong enough why of why we want to do something, the desire is usually not there
right.
to do it.
And what's interesting is you're absolutely right. And what I sort of realized during this conversation is that this whole time I'm thinking I don't have this desire to do, right?
Hmm.
But it's just not the way it's not in the way that I was thinking other people expected me to do. So what I mean by that is my desire is so great that me, like my whole life is dedicated to my spiritual evolution.
Right.
Like everything. It's my life. It's not, I don't have compartmental lives. Like everything is in it. Like I'm
Hmm.
all in, all of me. And so there's a deep desire there because I can't, it's like you know, I love swimming in this ocean of learning.
Right.
That's my desire. And I do want to be of service, and I am in my own way.
Hmm.
And I'm trusting in the unfolding of my life. But this lower self, that same lower self that is okay, is trusting, it wants to be, there's that 10% that's saying, dude, that's all good and everything, but like wise up a little bit. Do you really want to go down that path fully? Maybe you should start thinking about this, that, and the other thing. And I mean, I, I really do think I still have a lot to integrate and process from this conversation, for sure. It's just interesting because there was a part of me that thought, well, I've lost the desire, for like achieving my goal, right? Because
Hmm.
I like you said, like I'm not passing out flyers. I'm not doing the YouTube channel and the podcast that I keep saying I want to do. And I feel like called to do that. But something is like this invisible force is not allowing that to happen, whatever that is. And I don't feel that it's fear because I don't feel afraid. I mean,
Hmm.
I put myself out there every week,
Right.
not
Twice a
knowing
week.
who's going to show
Hmm.
up to my meetups, and a lot, and being okay with that. So I am putting myself out there. I'm not playing small from my fear. So it's like this force of, I don't know why I'm not doing those things, but I just don't feel called to do them, right? I
Hmm.
feel called, but I am committed, and I have the why of showing up each week, for my meetups and for whoever feels called to join us. And I definitely have the desire and the commitment and the will to like keep evolving and learning and sharing and,
Hmm.
being of service. I have that. And so I'm finding a new appreciation for myself of like, yeah, but I am doing those things and it's all good. And that is my
Right.
desire. And it's definitely, I need time to integrate a lot of things here. But I think we went through another one.
Well, I mean, at least like it wasn't like we weren't arguing or
Right.
anything, right? I mean, this wasn't like a big blowout or anything. It was, we had this conversation and I wake up going like, I'm not feeling like we might be aligned. And so we need to have like I just shared that with you and you were like, yeah, we need to have the conversation. Yeah, I mean, it was a good conversation. A lot came out and clarity, and but nobody was, neither one of us were upset or angry.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what I appreciate about our relationship so much is that we've created a safe space where we can really share what the truth of our feelings without judgment, without succumbing to, I can't go there with her, I can't trust, I can't, like, she's not going to understand. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah,
Like, I think we both cultivated, within our relationship, like just a willingness and a willingness to go there and say, like, this is really what I'm feeling. And I just want to share that with you. And whatever comes of that, comes of that. But always in a space of like, I want the best for both of us in any
right,
situation. Like, I want us to both be happy. I want us to both be open and free and like be authentic and it to be okay to share whatever's going on.
right. Yeah, me too.
And I do feel like it's safe and okay to be ourselves.
Right.
No matter what, it's okay.
Lynn and Cori will now share an update and any wisdom and insights gained since 2022.
Today, we're going to give an update on where we are 3 years after that intense conversation took place. So, I think what I want to do is just kind of start in with Cori. If you could share with us, having re-listened to that recording and 3 years later, some wisdom, some insights, sharing what you actually were going through and what you see now today for yourself and for our relationship and anything else you want to add. And I'll do the same after you share what, comes up for you.
Okay. Yeah, great. So, you know, without the 3 years going by and working on myself and our relationship, I don't know if I would have the same outlook that I did have when we re-listened to this three years later. So I first want to say how grateful I am to be in a different place with myself. And what's interesting is I would say probably this last year, it was the most impact, had the most impact on my growth that helped me see things differently after listening to this, because I went through a, coaching certification program to be a coach, and learning these tools and techniques that I would be using on others. I actually use these tools on myself to see how they work, and a lot came up for me over this past year going through that certification program. And then ironically now, almost towards the end of that program, we listen to this old recording and I'm like, wow, I'm seeing all the things that have come up for me, in the past, So one thing that, and it was actually really difficult for me to watch this recording because it was difficult because of how I was seeing myself back then. And it made me really sad because I felt like I wasn't present in the moment and you were experiencing this, tremendous like struggle and you were just going through it. And I couldn't hold that space. I didn't have the compassion or the empathy to just be there and listen. What happened is all of my fears and dysfunctions started coming up. And so I was really upset and not understanding and not just listening and just being there for you. And so some of the things so first of all, the main thing that I saw is like, wow, I couldn't even be present and just hold any space for you while you were going through this, your own experience that was very difficult for you in that moment. Some of the things that started triggering me that took me out of that space to be there for you was you not choosing me. So feeling like I'm not good enough and that you were okay choosing something over me. So that brings up a lot of I'm not enough, I'm not cared for. So that's all past stuff. And I was wanting you to make decisions that were going to make me feel better. So I kept I wasn't understanding the choices you were willing to make for yourself because that wasn't feeling good for me. And so I was just really coming up against this wall of like, no, I want you to make different choices so I could feel better, which was an interesting insight. However, I will say that still comes up today for me. So, and then,
And
yeah.
and just to elaborate there, so we've been having this ongoing conversation about doing and being and sort of, you know, how the ego tends just through its conditioning, wanting to do, conditioned to survive by the doing, by the controlling through doing. And being is completely at ease and at peace in itself. And so it's this constant back and forth with acknowledging the ego's desire to do and to control through doing. All right.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
my whole life, it was all about, having to do. I say my whole life. I don't know. Maybe once I got, divorced or once I became a stay-at-home mom, right? So something shifted for me where I will say it was probably when I became a stay-at-home mom because I was working, contributing to my marriage. Then I have a kid. Then we have a baby and decide to become a stay-at-home mom. And now I'm like, well, now what, how am I contributing? And so it was all about doing, making sure everything was done around the house. And so I got into this survival mode, right? Then I get divorced and then I'm still feeling like, well, I need to provide. And so it was really hard for me to just relax and trust the process of life and have this knowing that this is happening for me. It's not to me and everything's going to work out. And so, yeah, that disconnect between my way of thinking and how I live my life and your way of thinking and how you live your life started to scare me, to think we're not aligned. How are we going to continue a relationship together if I'm not, if I'm willing to do whatever it takes and I'm seeing that you're just wanting to just trust the process of life? And it just didn't sit well with me because I wasn't in that space. And, you know, even now it's difficult. I still have this, you know, mindset of you have to do and be. I feel like I've gotten much better because of the growth and what I've worked on. But yeah, that was a really big thing. And it was a big trigger for me
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
I was thinking, and that's where the you're not choosing me.
Mm-hmm.
You're choosing to just let it flow and however it's going to be, where me, I'm like, no, like you have to choose me and do whatever you need to do so we're okay, which brought up another trigger of money because I have this, you know, this money scarcity mindset, and that money was always a big trigger for me. And how are you now going to take care of me? So again, feeling like I'm not important enough to make certain choices and just do whatever it takes for us to be okay. And the fear of that, like you're not fighting for me, like you're not fighting for us, you
Mm-hmm.
know, our relationship, like you were okay with letting it all go. And in my mind that's like, so how important am I
Right.
to you? And yeah, and then I basically, just to like wrap up my side, is basically what I saw is I made it all about me.
Right.
You were struggling. You wanted to share what was just going on with you. And I just made it all about me. And I couldn't even think straight. I was thinking, this relationship isn't going to work. I don't know how we're going to do this. We're not aligned. And I just saw so much of my dysfunction come up. And it, like I said, I got choked up because of how much I, you know, love you and care about you. And I just wish in that moment that, like, if we had a do-over, I would just be holding that space and listening and not making it about me, and just being there for you know, because you were struggling. Um,
Yeah.
so it was a little heartbreaking to see that part of me. And I can't believe you weren't like, what the heck is wrong with her? I'm
Mm.
sharing something with her. I'm surprised you stayed with me.
Well, this is the beauty of that moment. The beauty of that moment is that we get to see a very common, universal, conditioned pattern of ego. Ego, and when I say ego, what I'm talking about is the idea that we have of ourselves as this separate body, mind, um, entity, organism, person. We think of ourselves as this limited person who is born, who lives a life, who dies, who has no control over things, and is desperately trying to control its survival and its reality and its experiences. And so um the reason why I felt like this conversation was so important to be shared um is because we often all struggle in some way with aspects of this, which is we can't be open and present for another who is struggling. When we are caught up in the idea of survival, of how is this going to affect me, and the fear I feel and the emotional discomfort I feel in this moment about what is being shared or what is being experienced, right? And the reason why I was able to continue to be in that conversation and not get caught up in the drama of it's all about me, and let me explain it a little bit more clearly as best as I can, and how I was able to hang in there is only because the hold of that idea of myself as a separate self was so loose. It doesn't have a strong hold. And so, having lived from both perspectives, I can totally have the compassion for what you're going through, because that 10% is a reflection, is what that it's all about me is about. It's exposing that. So I clearly was living in the 90-10%, and that 10% was the same as what you were going through, what you feel is, or what you felt was, it's all about me, and how is this going to affect me, right? And so this is the good news that I'd love to share with people, is that it's when you have this insight and this wisdom, it allows so much room and space for a different perspective. It's just an expansion into allowing for all of the ego in its various forms and beliefs and identities to be seen and to be accepted and to hold space and compassion and not judge. That's the good news that wants to be shared, is that there's something other than that fearful place, that fearful belief system that we're so identified with. And so thank you so much for sharing, your perspective of then and now. And something I've learned over the past few years is, I had this idea back then that the struggle was between my higher self and my lower self. So, and meaning I had this idea that my higher self, was giving me the insight of trust and faith and being at peace within itself. And that the lower self, which is really the ego, the personality that thinks it's separate, it's a separate self. It thinks it needs to survive, but it's just a concept. It's just a thought. And so, at the end of the conversation, it became very clear to me, and then I was sharing this clarity with you, that it was never about my higher self. My higher self is just, and when I say my higher self, what I'm realizing is it's my authentic self. It's not something separate from me, and it's not something that happened to me. It's not something that was attained. It was always me But there was still a small aspect of myself identifying as it being not me. Okay? So there's a lot to kind of unravel here. But basically, what I've learned is that to make it simple for people, the true authentic self is off is there is guiding us, is ever present, and it is us always. We're never not that. We're simply misunderstanding our identity. And so at the end of that conversation 3 years ago, I had this idea and this, what I felt like was this understanding of it's my lower self battling my lower self. But in actuality, it wasn't the lower selves battling itself. What I've come to understand now is that my true essence is constantly offering um, this guidance of being, of who I really am. But there's this untethering that needs to happen, and that was happening at that time, where I could see that that 10% that was fearful is just the thoughts, the belief in the thought that it could happen, and that I didn't want it to happen. I was afraid of that possibility. And so it was always hearing and listening and taking the leap of knowing all would be well if I stayed with the voice of my true authentic self. So the true authentic self was always, I'll say it this way, broadcasting itself. Okay? But I thought it was the higher self with the lower self, and at the end of the conversation I'm like, no, it's just the two lower selves going at it, like as if there was itself with itself. But really all that was going on was, it was like there were two streams of consciousness being broadcast. And there was this wanting to reconcile those two streams of consciousness. And one could say the deeper I, the knowing I that's impersonal, that is the one being, the one presence. And then there's the fearful I, the identified I, the personal I, right? The personality I that is in fear of, I don't want to experience this and it could come about, right?
Yeah.
And so it was basically that determination of me being like, I'm no longer going to be at the mercy of this idea of fear. I knew deep within, I no longer wanted to live my life through a lens of fear. I wanted freedom that badly. And if it meant, okay, this is just the concept. if it meant to lose everything, including you. I was willing to trade all of this world and all of the worldly possessions for my freedom. And that's what that was really about. And this is ultimately what we all struggle with at a very deep level. We struggle with not living authentically.
Right.
Because of fear of what we'll lose, sometimes fear of what we think we might gain and what that cost will be to have that. We often think if we get this, it's going to be more responsibility. It's going to mean XYZ. These are all thoughts that are created, that we believe in. And so this was a very insightful experience that allowed me to disentangle identity from these thoughts and beliefs. So I think the last thing I want to share, and then I'll offer, a space for you to share your final thoughts. But the final thoughts for me would be to know that we all go through this struggle between this inner knowing. It's just authentic knowing of truth. There's a truth of us. And then there's this voice that doubts, that is fearful, that is scared, that wants to control, that has an idea of right and wrong. And the other voice doesn't have that same fear. It doesn't have that need for control. It doesn't have the judgment of right and wrong. And these two aspects are simultaneously happening, you know?
Yeah.
And so we get to really fine tune and discern which one are we really going to buy into. And that for me is the biggest lesson. There's these two voices being broadcast. Which one are you going to follow?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So any final thoughts for you?
I think, well, what I was just realizing is at some point I obviously trusted and allowed for everything to unfold and for us to continue. And that was without any of the self-realization that I have today on that conversation. And so something allowed me to just feel safe or be okay, accept, surrender to life is going to unfold the way it's going to unfold. How I did that, I don't know, because I didn't have the tools I have today
Right.
and the awareness that I have now looking, back at that video. And so I love that that just came to me because in that moment, there was some shift
Mm-hmm.
that, and there was nothing I did to make that shift.
Right.
It was just this being. There was no doing. There was just this allowing that it's all going to unfold, and no matter what, like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
So, and I also am aware that any conversation that we have with anybody, when someone's coming to talk to us or have a conversation and it's about them, how quickly we turn it into about us. And that is something that's like an ongoing practice to really have the ability to be present with someone and not make it about us, even if the topic is about us,
Right.
because it's
Right.
not
Right.
still about us. And so when I think about my daily life and interactions that I have with people, friends or family or work, it's this constant reminder, to be present and not make the conversation about me, that this is something that someone is sharing and it's about them. But it's a constant process. It's a constant practice, right?
Yeah.
And I know that when I've had a conversation with somebody, I've seen the same thing happen where now they turn it into about them, and I'm just wanting to share. And so it's an interesting cycle that we all have something that ends up like triggering us. And it's like all of a sudden we can't be present for somebody. So, but I guess really that's just my closing is
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
awareness
Yeah.
of something shifted for me. And
Exactly. There
yeah,
was an understanding that simply occurred at the end of our conversation 3 years ago that allowed you to somehow step out um, of how is this affecting me versus I'm simply sharing something that is happening within me. And it doesn't need to be fixed. It doesn't need to be changed. It's just, this is real for me now, right now. And I'm just wanting to share that with you so you know
right,
what this is, where my state is right now.
right,
Yeah. And I think oftentimes this is really the key, is to become more and more aware of any time you're having an experience. Um, there's a feeling, a sensation that arises. There's thoughts that arise, and the awareness grows in the recognition that these things are coming and going, and not we don't have to continually buy into them over and over as the truth of the situation, right? There's a voice in the head offering a story about what someone is sharing.
right,
And oftentimes what happens is we hear a different perspective from the other person, and we're so caught up in our perspective that we're just so adamant that we want to share our perspective. And so there's these two perspectives that want to be shared, but so emphatically that there's no room for the other perspective to be true and heard and seen and known and okay. It's like, it's like, oh, there's this recognition. These two perspectives seem to be at odds, and I need for you to understand my perspective, right? Like, because this is, and sometimes it's not shared that way, but it's perceived that way from the other side, right?
right,
So it's like a defense, some sort of defense, like, oh, you're sharing a different perspective. So you're basically, this is the story, the subtext It's not really known, but the subtext of it is felt as if, oh, you're telling me I'm wrong and I should buy into your perspective. But that's not the case. That's not the case. Two perspectives. Hey, newsflash, millions of perspectives are actually happening at the same time. And we have this tendency to only require one to be right and everything else to be wrong. That's the pattern that we need to break free from.
I agree. And you said something really important is right. I realized looking back on the conversation, how many stories I started telling myself while you were talking.
Right.
All these stories about how this is going to affect me and what this means, and I'm not good enough, and you're choosing this,
Right.
and money. And like, I just started telling myself all kinds of stories. And right, I think it's really important to remember that, just to be open
Yeah.
on other people's perspectives, like just to be open. And
Right.
just because you're saying one thing and I'm saying one thing, it doesn't mean one's right and one's wrong. And that's something that always drives me crazy, is that some people think there's a right and a wrong.
Yeah.
But it's, as we say, it's both and.
Yeah. We're very entrenched in right and wrong.
Right.
We're
Yeah.
very entrenched in that belief system and that thinking. And so, and just a really final awareness that has shown up for me is that oftentimes, like you just mentioned, I'm buying into this story, right? It's recognizing that oftentimes we say things like, I believe this, I think this, it's all about this I. We have an opportunity now to let go of this idea that every single thought is me. It's a passing thought. This is not commonly known, and it may confuse some people here, but I do want to introduce, there is a subtlety here that is not recognized by most people, which is every single thought that is being, that is appearing. We have this tendency to say, I'm doing this. This is me. But it's actually just an appearance of a thought, of a belief. It's an appearance of it. And we are the ones knowing the appearance of it. We don't have to reclaim it as an identity over and over, which is a conditioned pattern that we have.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good topic.
Yeah.
Of a podcast for you to talk about that, because I agree, many people will be like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, right. So we'll table that for next time, but
yeah.
Just a sneak preview. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here today and, sharing your insights and your wisdom. And you are so cherished and appreciated. I love you so much.
I love you too. Thank you. I'm glad we're still trucking along and hanging on, and all is well.
All is well. All is well. And all is always well. Many blessings to everyone.